The Gene Keys Venus sequence teaches us how to move through the world with an open heart. And in doing that, it allows us to call in those relationships that we need to further develop spiritually and emotionally. Now, I have written up here the Venus stream because this, beyond just the Venus sequence, is an energy that pervades many different areas of our life. And it's a feminine energy, and it's really tied to grace or the hand of God reaching down to help you open and to let go some of our wounds, which ultimately is what the Venus sequence is about. We go back to the first 21 years of our development, looking at things in 7-year developmental cycles. We've got our IQ, which is 14 to 21. We've got our EQ, 7 to 14. And we've got our SQ, 0 to 7. And so each gene key that you have in these spheres basically helps us to understand a worldview that we adopted at some point during this time frame that skews our view of the world and causes us to build armor around our hearts and to shut down. And what the Venus stream does is it starts to pierce through that armor. It starts to soften us. We start to feel at home on earth again, and we start to love life and love the people that are in our lives. So what I really want to do today is help you to understand how the different spheres of the Venus sequence, which is the Venus sequence, right, itself is part 2 of what's called the Golden Path. And this was the original kind of way that you worked with the profile in the Gene Keys, and now the Star Pearl has been added on top of that. But the original Golden Path, part 1, was what's called the activation sequence. Part 2, sorry this is so light, I need to get some new markers. Let's see if one of these works any better. Part 2 is the Venus sequence, which we're talking about now. And then part 3 is the Pearl sequence, which is all about prosperity. So this first part, activation, is all about coming into trust with God. And I'm telling you all this so that you understand why I'm talking about the Venus stream today and why it's so important as it pertains to your life and to prosperity, actually. And to your relationship with God and your partner. And it's really important. So activation sequence, we develop a sense of inner stability and a trust in God. We see our core gifts. We start to see the bigger picture. We start to remember that we are more than our ego or our patterns and habits. And then the Venus sequence, once we have that foundation and that stability inside of ourselves, we can bring it out into relationship, and I can start to be an anchor for people, be a pillar or a lighthouse in relationship. And I can be the one that breaks all of these karmic patterns that have been tied up, that have kept your life in drama for who knows how long. And then we go to the Pearl sequence. So after the heart is open and we're able to have loving relationships, we're able to communicate with the world in such a way that we don't drop back into our wounds, then the pearl work happens, right? Then we're ready to bring our message out into the world. And that's the reason that it's recommended that these things are done in this order. And so what I want to reinforce today is how doing the Venus work is vital before you go out into the world and try and share your brand, share your message, resonate with the culture. Otherwise, you're just constantly going to be tripping yourself up over and over and over again. So the way that I want to do that is actually by going through the Venus sequence and just kind of talking through with some examples how this might manifest. So I'm going to start down here, and this is the sphere of purpose. If you want to look at your Gene Keys profile, it's at the very bottom. It's where the activation sequence ends, and it's the first sphere of the Venus sequence. And so purpose. The example that I'm going to use here is the 60th gene key. And I'm not going to get into the lines today, but the 60th gene key is limitation, realism, and justice. So this gene key is all about balance. Okay, it's all about staying in balance and finding the middle way. If you're familiar with that terminology from the Tao Te Ching, there is a path, Wu Wei, another term for this, where it's the act of doing by doing nothing. It's this path of ease, and it comes about by not going too far in any one direction. And when we can stay home, when we can stay balanced and centered, life gets a whole lot easier. So as that pertains to the sphere of purpose, this person is all about, in their relationships, grounding down this balance for people. It's a place where they are modeling what it means to be able to hold both poles, to be able to see both sides. And maybe you can feel how important that is in relationship. However, at the shadow, it's limitation. So this person is constantly going to feel constricted, even by the relationship itself is going to feel like a limitation. There's going to be this craving for freedom, and you'll see, or hunger for freedom, and you'll see a little bit more how these, or a little bit later, how these things start to play off of one another. Then coming up out of the sphere of your purpose, this first pathway here is the pathway of Dharma. So this is all about me walking my life path, fulfilling the reason that I am here, fulfilling my purpose. And in this case, we're actually moving this way. So what this says is that your Dharma emerges from your purpose. And remember, your purpose has nothing to do with doing anything. It's this quality of being. Remember, it's the modeling the behavior for the other person. And emerging from that is our Dharma, is the reason that we are here. And then that links us to the next sphere here, which is the sphere of attraction. And so the sphere of attraction is what calls in all of the situations and all of the people and all of the stuff that needs to happen in your life so that you can go through this process of opening your heart, so that you can step into your pearl sequence and be of service to the whole. This sphere is what dictates those things coming to you. Okay, so really, really important place in the profile, not from a manifestation standpoint. That's important. The attraction, manifestation, although they do have some overlap and sound similar, you really can't think about it in that way, or it can be a little bit confusing to think about it in that way. Okay, so here we're going to talk about the 29th gene key, which is half-heartedness at the shadow, commitment at the gift, and devotion at the city. Okay, so in order for me to get the right set of lessons, I've got to put myself in the gift of commitment. Okay, I've got to stay committed to my path. I've got to stay first and foremost committed to God and committed to the present moment. And when those things happen, the circumstances of life just align themselves in such a way that you feel like you're in rhythm or you are in flow. And that then calls in these situations that allow us to undo our wounding patterns. And that's where we're going to go next, is up to this sphere of IQ via the pathway of karma. So I walk my purpose. I call in the things because of my Dharma, because it's predestined, and because I'm answering things with commitment. Oh, before I go any further, half-hearted. Okay, so if I lose that commitment, if I am half-hearted with things, if I have a seed of like, oh, I'm gonna do this just because I have to do it, then what happens is what gets called in are things that are going to help me change that behavior. And if you know anything about behavior change, you know that it can be a little bit uncomfortable. I stay in commitment, I stay devoted to God, and then the pathway of karma. Karma, think of this as like little packets that open up in your life, that bring learnings and teachings and lessons, and most of the time it comes through something a little bit difficult. But karma often is hidden. It's like wrapped up in things. And this is the reason we enter into a relationship and it feels amazing in the beginning, and then it kind of falls apart at a certain point. It's because that packet of karma unwinds, and we start to feel the reality, the realism of the scenario or of the situation. So now my IQ, I've got 46 here, which is seriousness, delight, and ecstasy. Now, where this starts to happen, karma, something crazy is happening in my life, something difficult is happening in my life, I'm bumping into someone else. And it's a mental pattern that starts to show up that is either going to help bring me closer to this person and help me through this situation, or it's going to shut me down and shove me away. And the way that you shut down or the way that you shove it away has more to do with the line. However, this mental pattern, if this person can stay in an energy where they're not taking things so seriously, where they can be easy, then in conversation, in relationship, that is what is going to manifest the best possible result. So taking this to the world of business, if I sit down with somebody for a sales conversation and before that call, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna map this out, exactly what's gonna happen, and we're gonna talk about this and that, and I know that this person's suffering, and so I'm really gonna, like, that kind of energy is going to block me from being able to have a fruitful relationship with somebody. Whereas if I can show up in this energy of ease, if I am playful, then the conversation is going to flow. People are going to feel my heart. The walls start to come down, and that is what does the work, not the words. It's the energy behind the words that are doing things. And so you can start to see how our gene keys give us clues on how we are meant to interact with people. So in my business, I don't script anything. Like, I just show up as me, in play, having fun, because that's how I'm designed. And that's not the case for everyone. That's why the gene keys can be really helpful. However, they can also be unhelpful if we get over attached to them, if we get too serious with them. Okay, coming out of this sphere of IQ, we connect over here to the sphere of EQ via the pathway of intelligence. So your EQ is an emotional pattern developed sometime between 7 and 14, and it comes online when an emotional charge gets really high. Typically, when this gets triggered, you are not present. Like, you are getting sucked back into a past version of yourself, and you're responding to that thing. You're responding to what's called a samskara, this energy wound that you have inside of yourself. And so at the lower frequency, this pathway of intelligence has another keynote, which is defense. Okay, so this is like, we put up the walls, we block out everything because we can't handle a charge. Like, we're bouncing back and forth between our IQ and our EQ. Like, intellectually, we're trying to, like, stand our ground and fight for what we think is right. And then, you know, below that, there's this, like, deep emotional charge. And like I said, we're not present. We're feeling overwhelmed. The energy is frenetic, and it's just a nightmare. And so when these things get triggered, we just shut down. We try and protect ourselves. And of course, in your relationship, that's going to cause distance. So if you're struggling with your partner, we've got to take a look at some of these old wounding patterns and where you are not being present. If you're struggling with your kids, if you're struggling with your partner in business, if you're struggling with your clients, if you're struggling to get a message across to people, oftentimes it's because you are stuck here trying to defend yourself in some way, shape, or form. And as long as you are stuck there trying to defend yourself, people are not going to be able to hear you. And everything that you say is going to fall flat in the world of business, and you are not going to be able to deeply connect with the other humans that are in your sphere. So as an example here, it's actually the gene key that we are in right now, which is the 6th gene key, and it's conflict, diplomacy, and peace. Okay, so when this person gets triggered, and these are my gene keys, I just keep bouncing back between this person and me. I don't know why. Which speaking of me, if you're new here, my name is Jay Cohen. I talk about the gene keys. I also have another channel that I'll link where I talk about spirituality and business. I've got a free call that I host every week to talk about these things. It's in a group called the Synarchy. There's like, I don't know, a few hundred people in there. It's dope. We have also like people from within the community offer their guidance. There's little community calls popping up that I don't make. Like we have a Course in Miracles call in there. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And if you have any interest, I'll put the link in the description and you can join us over there. Okay, so my posture in life, because of how I grew up, is one of conflict, meaning I would walk into a room as big as I could be, ready to fight. That was like my MO, and I fought a lot growing up because of it. Luckily, I'm 6'3" and 200 pounds, and I did okay, but like I was constantly in tightness and tension and guarded, and life was like there was no delight. Everything was so serious all the time. So if I have that posture in relationship, of course it's not going to go so well, right? There's like landmines everywhere that I'm just waiting for this person to step on so that I can freak out at them. Also in business, okay, if we go into a call with a posture of conflict, so if you get into a disagreement with a partner or a client or an advertiser or whatever, and you go into that call with okay, I'm gonna stand up for myself, I'm gonna get what's mine, I'm gonna like all these things, it's gonna go horribly because we're not gonna be able to stay present, because we're gonna get lost in that battle, which is not us. What we are is diplomatic, and that doesn't mean losing yourself. Again, it goes back to balance. It's about balancing when to say things, how to say things, knowing the right timing to do things. Diplomacy has been one of my greatest gifts. It allows me to deeply connect with people because I can read and see when is the right time to say things and when are people ready to hear things. Because sometimes if we don't run through that filter, it can drive us towards conflict. Like if somebody's not ready to hear, you cannot make them listen. So we've got to change our posture. Okay, then we've got just a couple left here, but I ran out of room. So I'm gonna put the EQ sphere over here. And you'll just imagine that this is a continuation making our way up. And this comes over and we've got here the sphere of our SQ. And this is the pathway of love. So this pathway has no lower frequency keynote, because when the heart, SQ, if you look at your Gene Keys profile, it overlays right at your heart space. And when the Venus stream reaches the heart, all that's left is love. All of the defenses detonate. The stream works its way all the way down into the very cells of your being. And from within those cells, our DNA begins to vibrate and new hormones are produced. And we have this experience of boundlessness. We have this power that is indescribable, and along with that comes love. That's what the power is. So our SQ is the 0 to 7-year-old pattern, and it really, really runs deep inside of us. And most of the time, there aren't going to be, all of the time, there aren't going to be words that are associated with any of the patterning that happens in the sphere of your SQ. It's just too deep in there. And it ties to like structures of your body and the way that you're, like, I think your fascia has a lot to do with this sphere of the SQ here. And this, when we get the energy here, this flood comes, like it's like a breakthrough, and all of a sudden you have this epiphany of, oh my God, how have I not seen this the entire time? And so the SQ, we're going to use the 35th gene key, which is hunger, adventure, and boundlessness. Okay, so we're tangled up in this pattern of defense between IQ and EQ, and I'm feeling serious, and I'm feeling conflict, and what that is going to do is create this deep hunger. And for me, it manifests of this feeling of like, I'm hungry to not be here. Not to kill myself, but just to not exist, to not be human. It's a hunger for God. It's like a hunger for like, give me some understanding of why all of this is happening. It's a hunger for my patterned behaviors, drugs, sex, food, like just this deep hunger arises, and there's not words for it, and it's incredibly challenging pattern to wrangle in the beginning. I've learned how to harness it, and it's one of the most powerful energies that exists inside of me. I know that there's a gene key with the shadow of addiction, but I'm pretty sure that this gene key is also linked into addiction in a pretty deep way. So this individual, yours truly, if I can see the ride that I'm on, right? The mayhem of whatever's happening with the relationships, whatever's happening in my world, if I can see the adventure in it, if I can see the fact that this is just a drama that's playing itself out, that I'm a character in, that I'm on this rock floating through space at a ridiculous speed, they could get hit by a comet at any moment, I can just like be like, what am I doing? Tangled up in this mess right now. And instead, I can see the adventure in life. I can realize like, oh, I did it again. I'm here to learn these things. How can I make this fun? How can I untangle this? How can I use what I'm feeling right now to go and do something in the world that's new and novel and creative and heart-opening for me in a deep way? And if I am able to do that, that the armor around the heart thaws, and whatever line you have here, it starts to manifest in the outer world. People start to notice that quality inside of you. And it is deeply impactful for people, because so many people have lost connection to their heart and decided to close it down because it hurts to have an open heart. That's the reality of the situation. You're going to be hurt over and over and over and over. I'm sorry. And you get awe and beauty and love and direct experience of God over and over and over and over. And the price you got to pay is you get both ends of the spectrum. Okay, and then taking us home here, our last sphere is what's called the sphere of your core. And this is actually the first sphere of the Pearl sequence. And there it's called your, wow, you're not gonna be able to see that at all. It's called your vocation. But in the Venus sequence, when the Venus stream is what we're talking about, it's your core wound. So this is something that happened before you were born. Okay, you were God given this wound. Thank you very much, God, because it drives your evolution. It helps you be compassionate. It helps you see the suffering in other people. And so when you deeply connect to your core wound is when you're ready to step out into business, because it's what allows you to see with eyes of lucidity, to see behind what people are saying, behind the words, to intuit the energy, to intuit what they actually need or want. And as someone who is trying to provide value, oftentimes what people think they want or think they need is not actually what they want or need. And you will know that as an expert, and you will know that if you are connected to your core wound. It gives us this X-ray vision and an understanding that we don't need to be upset at people, that we don't need to protect ourselves, that we are safe, that everything's going to be okay. And the reason for that is that we know that we are all the same thing, because the core wound in you is the same as the core wound on me. And I don't mean the same gene key. I mean, we're all wounded, every single one of us. And we tell ourselves the story that keeps us separate. But in reality, that's what connects us together. That's what makes us be able to be compassionate and empathetic. So, my core wound is the 56th gene key. Let's try and trade markers back here, which is, that one still is not good. Distraction. Oh, that was a bad squeak. At least we got a marker though. Distraction, enrichment, and intoxication. So for me, intoxication. For me, to connect deeply with other people, I've got to stop distracting myself away from that wound, from the pain that I feel in myself. Stop blaming other people for it. Stop blaming the world for it. Stop blaming God for it. It's just a part of being human. It is what it is. It's something that we can come to accept. And when we do, everything changes in an instant. So if I can stop distracting myself away out into the world of the five senses and instead stay in my internal state, be aware of what's happening with my IQ, EQ, right? Instead of getting lost in them, then what starts to happen is I can connect with people on a level even beyond the heart, right? This is a step further than the heart. This is the causal plane. This is divine. When you communicate with people from this place, they will tell you that what you're saying is changing their life or is impacting them deeply, deeply, deeply. And so to be in service, to be in business, we've got to connect to this because it's what makes us impactful. Okay, that was, I think, good. I don't know. That was all shoot from the hip. I will, like I said, post the links for you so that you got the other channel, the Synarchy group. Also, I do work deep work with people for 6 months at a time, working on their business, their spirit, personal development, unblocking, all that kind of stuff. However, I only work with people in a certain phase of the journey. So you can fill out the questionnaire that I'll link, and if it seems like it'll be a good fit, we can have a conversation about that. Yeah, cool. Till next time.